Hey everybody, it's Chainsaw. Today I'm continuing the Protest the Hero discography with, of course, the 2008 release, the second release from them, Untitled Fortress. The first big thing I do want to say about this release, and I want to say it now to really give you an understanding of what I think about this album right off the bat, is the vocal performance, which includes singing, low growls, high screams, lyrical content, the rhythm playing, the lead playing, the melody playing, bass performance, drum performance, basically everything that you're hearing from this album, in my personal opinion, is miles ahead of Kezia. Now, I'm not saying that to basically bash their first release and say it's bad. I'm saying that because when you see the progression from the 2005 release Kezia to now, 3 years later, Fortress, and you see that progression, and, well, first of all, the production quality, you can see a big change there, but looking at the more in depth about it, looking at the songwriting, looking at the technicality, looking at where the band has progressed and where the songwriting actually went in 3 years, and seeing the transition from 2005 to 2008, you see that the band has matured and really has taken the songwriting and basically all the things that really made Kezia a great opening album to start this band out as their first official album, and taking it not to just another level on Fortress, but even higher than that. I would say even a couple levels. They took it to just a couple more levels. And you see that through this album, and that's really what I wanted just to get off, like just say right now, just to say it, because that's how I feel. Because this album, I just fell in love instantly when I first heard it, because it had so many things going for it that I literally had to replay this album at least a good 5, 6, 7, 8 times while getting ready for this review. And before that, before actually deciding to take on this Protest the Hero discography, I've heard this album at least 50 plus times. But if I wanted to really review it, I had to really dig deeper than I used to listen to this album. And I just remembering all these things, remembering what really made this album stand out. And throughout this record, you really get to see, like I said earlier, the progression of 3 years that this band had from Kezia to now Fortress. And it's a very big progression. And I'm just in love with this release. It really just stands out as not just an amazing Protest the Hero release, but an amazing metal album in general, in my personal opinion. I think that this album stands the test of time, because this is a 2008 release, and we're now getting close to 2014 at this point as I'm recording this video, and this album sounds like it was released this year. It could have been released this year. People that probably don't look up the date could assume, oh, this came out this year, like just hypothetically. But that's how amazing this album is. It sounds like it was written this year, because that's how progressive and how technical it sounds, and it blows my mind each time I listen to this record, whether it's the vocal performance that really stands out, the vocals that have this amazing singing quality from Rody, or the fact that the guitar playing is very intense when it gets to those sections, or whether it's the melodies that are outstanding. This is where the biggest accomplishment and the biggest progression, I think, happened, is not just the vocal performance, which really did progress, and the rest of the band, but I think the biggest progression that went from Kezia to now Fortress that we're talking about is the guitar performance. And I think what helped it a little bit is the production quality. Yes, it sounds a lot cleaner, it sounds more aggressive, and more of the tone that they really wanted, but you really get to see where the step up in the step up levels that they've went to writing the rhythm sections, to writing the lead parts throughout songs, or writing the intense and sometimes beautiful melodies that you're getting throughout this record. And you really get to see that the guitars have just went through a transformation, an evolution, if you will. And I just am amazed of what happened in 3 years. We got very intense playing on Kezia, don't get me wrong, but Fortress really shows the huge progression that really happened in 3 years. So I just think it's very, very powerful stuff throughout this album, and that's why I'm, really praising it a lot. And I know I've been comparing a lot of Fortress and Kezia, but you have to look at the big picture here. there's just a huge progression that I just could not ignore that, because then this review would be really, really short. But I had to say all that because it's the truth. I just see so much progression in this band, and I'm so proud that the progression went in the right way. It could have went in a completely bad way. They could have taken all the things that people didn't necessarily like too much from Kezia and made a very bad record. But they took everything that made Kezia an amazing starting point and took it to levels that people probably didn't see it before the album came out, before the second release, Fortress. Some of my highlights on this album, and I did want to talk about some of the highlight songs and talk a little bit about them. Bloodmeat, which opens the album. This is the first song I heard from this release. My friend let me listen to it, and I just love that Rody was actually doing his vocal thing, and he was actually like mimicking the guitars in some sections. And that song is a very powerful opening, a track that really sets you up for, this is where we're at this point. This is where we are musically. Get ready. And it's just a very intense track. I love all the guitar parts, the bass parts, the drums, and especially the vocals. Man, a very good track to open up the album. Bone Marrow, which is track number 3. I really enjoyed that track. I always go back to it from time to time if I'm listening to the album or not. And I just enjoy listening to the vocal parts and enjoying the progression and the transitions that the song goes through. Now, I do want to mention this before I continue on, is that this album is divided up in 3 sections. Tracks 1 through 3 is entitled On Conquest and Capture. Tracks 4 through 7 are untitled for some reason. And track 8 through 10 is Isosceles. I don't know how to pronounce that. Just spelled it out. It's a spelling contest. Spelling bee. But, so they divided it up. It's kind of like what they did with the first release, but they divided it up in 3 sections. So anyways, let's continue on with track number 4, Sequoia Throne. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm hoping I'm saying it right. But that's a very, very good track. It had a lot of great guitar melodies, and that's one of my personal favorite tracks I really wanted to mention because it's a very powerful song. And even though it's barely over 3 minutes long, it feels like it's a longer track than it actually is. But definitely a good track. Palms Red, Limb from Limb, tracks 5 and 6. Great heavy tracks, had some great heavy moments and some great guitar parts and great vocal work as well. And I really enjoy the drum work on Palms Read. That was a very, very cool stuff. I had to repeat some stuff to, what did the drums do there? Spoils, track number 7, very, very good track. I love the guitar work in that as well. Guitar work, that's a really consistent thing, but I love just hearing guitar parts, and Protest the Hero is one of those bands that deliver amazing guitar parts. And so tracks 9 and 10, now Wretch, track 8 was really good, but track 9, Goddess Bound, and track 10, Goddess Gagged. That's pretty interesting, but that's the closer of the album, Goddess Gagged, and that was a very interesting track. I love the opening riff that really starts off the track number 10, Goddess Gagged, so that was a good intro to start off with to end this album, but a very good ending, I would have to say. So I know I basically mentioned all the tracks, but there's, in my personal opinion, there is no bad tracks on this album at all. There's not. I just am in love with each track, and it has its own unique thing that makes it stand out. So that's basically why I mentioned all the tracks. But I had to talk a little bit about some of the things and basically talk about the tracks. So anyways, let's go through the personnel of this, and then we'll be done. So I've already mentioned basically all the great things from the band members, but I want to mention them by name and a little bit more info about this record. Rody, of course, on vocals. Like I was saying earlier about the starting off talking about the big thing opening the review about his vocal performance, his singing, high screams and low growls, and basically just his vocal performance in general has greatly improved, has been rejuvenated. It sounds like he's at some other level than he was on Kezia. The lyrical content's amazing, and Rody he's just one of those unique vocalists. And I know some people, like personal friends of mine, who are not really huge fans of Protest the Hero because their vocalist is kind of a different vocalist. And I will have to admit, Rody is a different type of vocalist. He's not a very low growling type guy. He's not a darker sounding guy. He's very light, and when he sings, he has a very amazing, beautiful voice. And when he goes into his high screams and sometimes low growls here or there, depending on what the track needs or what section needs that, he's not, always, being like a low growler all the time. And some of my friends don't like that, but I love the fact that they have a different type of vocalist. I love that Rody's different. It makes this band even just more different than most metal bands out there today. So that's big props, but Rody did an amazing job on this record. I can't give enough praise. Luke and Tim on guitar. I will have to say that, like I said, the guitars, I've been praising that through this whole review, and I just can't help it. The guitar work is just phenomenal. It just sounds amazing to hear all these little itty-bitty melody things, or these little changes that happen, and you have to really pay attention to catch all these guitar parts. The rhythm playing is very tight and very heavy, and then we get to the beautiful, more pulled back sections where it's basically a very epic sounding moment with Rody going in those amazing vocals. The guitars really have to follow suit and do that, but just the production quality on the guitar tone and basically the playing and everything involved with the guitars are just phenomenal. 10 out of 10 for the guitars. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff. Can't give enough praise. Arif on bass. It also says that Tim and Arif did vocals as well. So I've heard vocals throughout this as well besides Rody, so good job on those vocals as well. But anyways, back to Arif on bass. The bass playing fits right along perfectly with the guitar playing with the guitars throughout this album. When it gets to the heavy crunching parts, the bass is giving that extra hit, that extra thump to really add to that effect of the heaviness riffs and making them a little bit heavier. And when we get to the more, maybe it's more of the focusing on the melody, the bass sounds great there. And when we're doing a more pulled back, not too heavy, just a light moment, if you will, the bass makes that sound even more groovier, or basically more lighter, and doesn't give too much heaviness to really ruin that moment. So really enjoyed the playing of Arif, and I really enjoyed his bass sound. Moe on drums. The drums is always the thing I always enjoy from Protest to Hero, because when there's a heavy, intense section, the drums are doing very technical stuff. And when there's sections where Protest to Hero mainly, like, they want you to focus on this melody, they want you to focus on this guitar solo, or they want you to focus on Rody doing something with his vocals, then the drums follow suit. Whatever the section needs, the drums fit perfectly. It's not too simplistic, it's not too technical, but when it's very technical, it's there. When it doesn't need no technical, basically barely anything, then you get that. And so Moe's an amazing drummer, great sound, and overall the band all together, they sound amazing on this record, and I can't give enough praise. I just can't give enough praise. And a very amazing album, and I enjoy every single minute of this album, and I just love it. And I'm so glad that I discovered this band. So anyways, guys, that is the review. If I have to give a rating, and I will, I give this album a 9.75 out of 10. You could say, well, wouldn't you give it a 10? That's on a good day, and it is a good day, but I'm saying 9.75 out of 10. You could say it's a 10 out of 10, but that is my rating. I switch back and forth. But this is an amazing, beautiful release from Protest to Hero, and I can't wait for the new release that's coming out soon as I'm recording this video. But up next, we're going to review the third release. But anyways, guys, that is my review. Tell me if you've heard this album, and I hope you have. If you haven't, go check it out. Now, comment down below and let me know what's your favorite track from this album. So anyways, guys, that is a review. Thank you guys for watching. If you like me and you like the video, like the video. And if you like me and you want to see more, click subscribe or click on my name to see more of my content. Thank you guys for watching. See ya.